The world of steak is as diverse as it is delicious, and filet mignon is the cream of the crop. And while it often sells for a pretty penny, there's another cut of beef that offers many of the same qualities at roughly half the price. At over $30 per pound or more, filet mignon is arguably the most expensive steak cut out there, aside from ultra-fancy imports like Kobe or Wagyu beef. It's extraordinarily tender, with a distinctive, beefy flavor and relatively low fat. Because there's so little of this cut on the cow, it comes at a high price. However, you can get some of those same attributes in a much more affordable cut in the form of the shoulder petite tender. This cut goes by a few names, so you may also see it sold as chuck shoulder tender medallions, or just shoulder tender. As with any other cut, prices will vary between butchers and grocery stores, but it can be priced as low as $14 per pound. For those doing the math, that's basically half the price of filet mignon. It comes from the shoulder or chuck section of the cow. The muscle is called the teres major, and the steak may also be sold under this name. However, beware that it's not the most common cut to find because it's difficult for butchers to remove from the cow, and one cow only yields a few of these steaks. Often, butchers will cut a larger chunk of shoulder and not separate out the shoulder petite tender at all.
What a waste.
The shoulder petite tender is often compared to filet mignon or tenderloin steak, and a key reason for this is because it's very tender, perhaps the next most tender after those two better-known cuts. The teres major is a muscle that cows rarely use. As a general rule, the more a muscle is worked, the tougher it becomes. Consequently, cuts from the shoulder area are much tougher, but the petite tender is an exception. On top of that tenderness, this cut also offers a distinctly beefy flavor. It's a lean cut that's relatively low in fat, which is yet another characteristic that it shares with filet mignon. It's worth noting that these kinds of tender yet lean cuts do have their detractors though. When it comes to beef, there's a commonly held belief that fattier meat tends to have more flavor, so some chefs are not fans of leaner cuts like filet mignon. Real haters may even argue that the reason filet mignon is sometimes served wrapped in bacon is because it needs the added flavor. Nonetheless, the shoulder petite tender is often held up as a quality, tasty cut sold at a reasonable price. If you're using shoulder petite tender as a substitute for filet mignon, chances are you want to grill or sear it. Bear in mind that if you're a serious carnivore, you won't be able to source a huge hunk because teres major is a small cut, often around 10 ounces. Since it's so lean, it's wise to season it with salt a little further in advance than you might otherwise do with other cuts. We recommend around a day or at least a few hours. You probably won't want to cook the petite tender to more than medium or medium rare. When cooked longer, lean cuts like this can dry out, and you won't get any of the tenderness if you grill it until it's well done. Otherwise, all the standard rules for grilling steak apply. Pat the meat dry, let it sit at room temperature a while before cooking, and use a super hot grill. Be sure to let the meat rest when it's done so it's nice and juicy. Grilling isn't the only option for this cut. It roasts well, but again, you'll still want to keep it medium rare. Use a meat thermometer if you're unsure. It can also work well in tacos or kebabs, so feel free to get creative.